Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, and a few people that have to take their seats yet. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Councillor Patterson, and if any of you are wondering, I am chairing the meeting tonight. We do rotational chairing duties amongst the council members, so I am chairing the meeting tonight, and Councillor Murdoch or Mayor Murdoch is now Councillor Patterson tonight, anchoring that end of the table, far east seat on the table. He gets to feel the cold drafts that I get every week. However, but welcome, and I'm so happy that so many people were able to join us on this very cold evening. Just reminder to all that we are live streaming this meeting tonight. And so to call the meeting to order, I'd like to start, of course, with our traditional acknowledgement that we do. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Coasts and Straits Salish people. Specifically, we recognize the Lekwungen people, known today as the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, and that their historic connection to these lands continue to this day. So with that now, I will call for approval of the agenda. Moved and seconded, thank you. And the next, the adoption of the Committee of the Whole minutes. Oh, call the question, sorry. Approval of the agenda, all in favor? Thank you, took it for granted. Adoption of the Committee of the Whole minutes of November the 20th. Moved approval, seconded, all in favor, none opposed, thank you. And the next item on the agenda is the delegations, and I take it that the delegations have attracted quite a number of people interested tonight. Just a reminder to any of the delegations that are presenting, the time allocated for each of the presentations is 5 minutes. The first item on the agenda is the presentation by Capital Bike. I understand James Coate is here tonight to present. If you would just come forward to the podium, please, and state your name so that we all know, and perhaps your municipality of residence.
Middle button. Thank you to Council and Mayor. My name is James Coates. I work at Capital Bike. I have a short little presentation up on the screen there of the results of various bike education programs and other bike-related programs in Oak Bay. The reason for my being here, and I'll try and be as concise as possible, as I understand there's a lot of other folks here today, is because Oak Bay has been a very long-time generous supporter of the work that we do through different grant streams, and we find it's better to report directly to Council on all of those disparate little activities that we do. Is there a little slide clicker? What did I just say? Next slide. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So Capital Bike is a registered charity dedicated to the advocacy, education, and celebration of all things bicycle. We try and run free, low-cost programming to encourage as many people in the Capital Regional District to ride bikes. Next slide, please. Our mission is to help get more people cycling more places more often through a variety of those programs. Next slide, please. We have 5 full-time staff, including myself, regular co-op and summer students, cycling instructors, and casual staff supporting that mission. We're governed by a volunteer board of directors. Next slide, please. Our largest flagship event that we're most known for is Go by Bike Week, which used to be Bike to Work Week. It's a behavior change campaign that tries to create a fun event with a lot of rewards for cycling to work, with the idea being that people who try cycling for a week rather than driving are more likely to take that up in their lives. The stats here are from our recent event in the fall, but more relevant for Oak Bay is that we had 228 participants who were residents of Oak Bay participating. They logged 1,800 trips on the bicycle during Go by Bike Weeks, and they rode 35,000 kilometers during the events. And we had our closing barbecue in the spring behind Oak Bay Bicycles, which had 676 participants. Next slide, please. Thank you. And some more stats for like in-person engagement that we had during last year's Go by Bike Week 4,200 station visits. That's a photo from 2 years ago where we had a station at the Oak Bay Tea Party. Next slide, please. Other events that we run, or services that we provide rather, are the Locker Bike Valet, which is a newer program for us that's exploded in popularity. It's a secure bike parking service, much like a valet at a hotel, but they park your bike for you. It's to deter bike theft and help people feel secure riding their bikes to events. We also have a permanent location in downtown Victoria. We parked 6,700 bikes total at different events in 2023. Most recently, we were in Oak Bay at the Tea Party in 2022 with just under 600 bikes, and we ran the Locker at 51 events across Greater Victoria last year. Next slide, please. We run a variety of group rides as well. around the region. Our largest one is our Truth and Reconciliation Day ride, which we run on Orange Shirt Day, September 30th. We ride from the Songhees Park over on the Songhees Nation to the South Island Powwow, and we've had over 500 participants for the last 2 years. Next slide, please. In Oak Bay, we run for all elementary schools in the Capital Regional District this program called Everyone Rides, grades 4 and 5. Since we began running the program locally in 2020, we visited Willows Elementary twice with 517 students total over those 2 courses. Last year, through a grant in aid, Oak Bay very kindly provided matching funds for that program, which allowed us to teach every grade 4 and 5 student at Willows Elementary, and we've taught 9,200 students since fall 2020. Next slide, please. And that's a 2-day program. Day 1 is in-class theoretical stuff about traffic safety, riding on the road for the grade 4s and 5s, how to stay safe on your bike. And then day 2 is practical. We set up little stations that simulate intersections and multi-use paths to build traffic safety and courtesy among this next generation of road users. Next slide, please. One thing that we've started doing based on the success of that elementary school program is a middle school program, and we piloted it here in Oak Bay at Monterey Middle School this spring. We taught 125 students total. That's a 4-day program, a little longer and more comprehensive than our elementary school program, and it actually includes a section where we take the kids out on the road, so every kid in middle school can get that experience cycling on the road with our trained instructors. We have upcoming programs at Central Middle School in Victoria and Bayside Middle School. Next slide, please. Some ideas for future initiatives, if we move on to the next slide, would be it's our 30th annual Go by Bike Week this spring and fall. Last time we had a big anniversary like that for the 25th anniversary. It was our biggest event ever with just under 10,000 participants, so we hope to have as many this year and would love to have Oak Bay involved in some capacity. Next slide, please. In the city of Victoria, we ran a program of guided tours, which we took interested people out onto different forms of bike infrastructure or routes and taught them safe use to try and build their confidence and increase the mode share to bicycles. We found they were really successful. A lot of people afterwards reported, am I out of time?
Yes, please, if you could wrap it up. I know there's a lot of people interested, and obviously you're very keen on the presentation, but if I could get you to wrap it up, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Of course. Guided tours might be a possibility, and the next and last slide is we hope to return to Monterey Middle with another course. Thank you, Council, for the time, and I'll cede the mic.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coates. Now I'm going to just go first to the council table and see if there are any questions for your presentation.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to our guest. Thank you very much for attending. Just always super, super grateful for the services that Capital Bike provides, and we're very, very lucky to have you supporting cycling in the Greater Victoria area. I'm just wondering how, if any, is there a way of evaluating? You're obviously outreaching to a bunch of schools, a bunch of children, and providing really important education. What exists as far as sort of evaluating whether or not those students are actually riding to school currently? Like, is there a way to evaluate and sort of poll that to find out what's the mode shift happening with school-age children, elementary and school-age children?
Absolutely, yeah, thank you. Great question. For the elementary schools, we have I think it's a 16-question survey that we send to the teachers, and they rate the general effectiveness of the course, engagement of the kids, and then there's a list of sort of like results they saw as a result of the course, one of which being more kids biking to school, more staff biking to school because, you know, it's built a culture of cycling, greater cycling safety knowledge. So we asked the teachers to report in that case. For the middle school, we do a survey of the students. They're a little bit more mature, a little bit more reliable. And we measure what way they get to school every day, walking, cycling, bus, before the course and then after the course, and see if there's any statistical change. From the elementary school course, we have a lot of data that more kids cycle to school after it. The middle school course, we've only run the one, and we had a little bit of a change from that, but we hope as we run it more, we get better evidence for that mode shift.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just one additional question. What, I recognize that you do a lot of data analysis, a lot of survey work to sort of analyze whether or not you're getting the behavioral changes that you're looking for. What, in the data that you've collected, have you seen as far as what's the feedback at the school level for what gets people riding more often? Like, what are the factors that influence that they're giving feedback on that say, this is what gets kids riding to school, this is what gets people, essentially kids out of cars and feeling motivated to ride to school?
Thanks. Great question. I'll refer to a CRD program they have called Ready Step Roll, where they go to different schools and do a total review of everything to do with active travel at the school and how they can promote it. And typically in those cases, they have recommendations for like the key routes that kids use to get to school, implementing little traffic improvements along there, more visibility at the crosswalks, removing sort of problem areas and altering them. They have ideas about like school bike buses where the school organizes the kids to all ride to school together or walk to school together. So there's a lot of infrastructure to that, and then they also recommend complementing the infrastructure improvements, education to help boost kids' confidence. So we come in sort of almost supporting the infrastructure by building that confidence and skills. But if any of council is interested, there's some great local data from the CRD's Ready Step Roll program on school like transportation behavior change.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Mayor Murdoch?
Thank you. Just briefly, that program from the CRD is excellent, so I'm glad you mentioned that. And thank you very much for coming here tonight. It's always good to get an update. I guess I was just going to make more of a comment than a question, but I think we got our grant application for you from Capital Bank a little late last year. I'm not sure, but I just want to make sure you get in early enough that we get a chance to make sure it's considered as part of our grant application process in the next month or two. So we can make sure that we're not missing any opportunities there.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll have it done by January 31st. Thank you, Mayor Murdoch.
Any other questions? Councillor Smart?
Yeah, thank you. Two questions. One was, the first one was just regarding mode shift from adult users. I've heard from a lot of our residents that they either want to shift to an e-bike and they've never ridden a bike before, or they are new on an e-bike and not feeling confident about using it. And I just wondered, I totally agree with youth being the focus for mode shift, but I'm just wondering if there's been any discussions from your organization with supporting mode shift at other ages, especially with e-bikes.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. I would say e-bikes are our second most popular and like fastest growing program behind youth programs. I think a lot of people when riding a regular pedal bike think, oh, I know how to ride a regular pedal bike, but an e-bike is new and novel enough to them that they think they need specialized training, which is often the case because the people who are riding e-bikes often maybe haven't ridden a bike in many years or their bike skills may be lower. So we have a variety of public e-bike programs from test ride demos to short like 2.5-hour courses to longer 5.5-hour courses. We run a couple different programs funded by municipalities. We got funding from the province last year to do some e-bike outreach. We're running a program with the town of Sydney as well. And then we also have a few public e-bike courses there. Not as large scale as our youth program, but a few things here and there to support the mode shift to e-bikes. And some of our guided tours that I mentioned briefly are e-bike specific guided tours. We find that those are have a lot more uptake than people taking a formal course. They'll think, oh, I'll go for a guided tour, and then we pepper in some education as well, whereas, you know, might be less likely to sit in a classroom and learn about e-bike safety. So thank you.
Any other questions, Councillor Smart?
Yeah, just one follow-up question about the 30th anniversary celebration potential. I'm just wondering how the municipality can best support that communication. Will that be coming forward with a grant application, or do you need any support in pulling that together?
I understand my coworker that runs Go by Bike Week will likely approach staff about funding through that. That's typically how we work with municipalities for funding stations, and then we work with the municipality to determine perhaps station location or any other way that they would like to be involved. And then even if there's not funding for a specific celebration station or event, we would still love to work with council on messaging and promoting the event leading up to it to get as many people to participate as possible. So thank you.
Councillor Smart?
Yeah, just follow-up question through you, Acting Mayor, to staff. Would you expect to see this as part of the celebration for the 30th anniversary as part of the grant and aid application, or would it be a separate item? I just don't want it to get it missed.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Yes, we would expect to see that as a part of the application, and the district does support Capital Bikes on this particular initiative, I think, quite excitedly. But yes, we would expect to see that as a part of an application form.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Anything further, Councillor Smart? Any other questions? No? With that, then, thank you very much for the presentation, Mr. Coates. It's been very informative, and so thank you for coming. Next, we have a delegation from ReconciliACTION Oak Bay Network. And I understand with us presenting tonight is Felicity Stairs and Bruce Kilpatrick. And I'm not certain who's starting, but the 5-minute still holds, regardless of whether there's 2 speakers or just one. So please keep your comments to the 5 minutes. Thank you. Could you perhaps turn your mic on and just say your name again so that people know, and perhaps your municipality?
Right. Good evening. I'm Felicity Stairs. I'm from Oak Bay, and I am here. Before we start, I'd like to pass on Reverend Hebert's regrets. He was supposed to be speaking here, but he has a family matter that came up. So I'm a member of Oak Bay United Church, one of the founding organizations of the ReconciliACTION Oak Bay Network. And with me is Bruce Kilpatrick from the Community Association. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. The last time ReconciliACTION appeared before Council was in January 2022, shortly after we formed. Back then, we were 5 organizations. We have since grown into a network of 12 community groups with a collective reach of 5,000 people. But our goals remain the same: to build community-to-community relationships with the Songhees and Esquimalt peoples and take concrete action to build a just future together, to support public engagement and action around truth-telling and reconciliation, and to work to encourage Oak Bay Council to honor its reconciliation commitments. Our activities include organizing public ceremonies to honor the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, hosting learning events and an all-candidates meeting on reconciliation, and campaigning on the future of Speewang. Other initiatives are underway. We have been heartened by the number of motions and initiatives to advance truth and reconciliation that this council has passed or announced over the last 3 years. These are important steps on our collective journey. But we have questions about whether any of these motions and initiatives have really moved forward. We're equally concerned that if we are to advance meaningfully as a community, you, as our elected representatives, need to actually walk the talk, deepen the commitment, strengthen public communications and engagement, and put in place mechanisms that will allow us to work together effectively. We know that community and council working together is important. The chiefs of both the Songhees and Esquimalt nations have confirmed this for us directly and have generously created communications protocols for us to receive their guidance and direction, as we know you have heard directly from Chief Sam.
So we're here to make two requests of council. Number one, to establish a select committee on truth and reconciliation under section 142 of the community charter to determine how council and the community can work together to create a truth and reconciliation action plan for Oak Bay. Number two, to communicate quarterly with the residents of Oak Bay on the progress council is making on implementing reconciliation-related initiatives, including planning the future of the Spewang buildings, lands, and waters, together with the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. We appreciate that the District of Oak Bay has a lot on its plate, but truth and reconciliation appears on the list of priorities at the top of every council agenda, and rightly so, because it is a priority for the community you represent. And I think you can see signs of that importance to the community in the gallery this evening. Oak Bay can move ahead further and faster by all of us working together, but we need to recognize that this cannot be a regular municipal process. We need to reimagine how things can work. Yes, council members have decision-making responsibility, but we need to decolonize the processes that lead up to those decisions and operate with transparency and trust, as the TRC says we must. The community needs to be engaged, not held at arm's length as if council were an independent entity. Ultimately, we see you as being of the community, not above the community. In this spirit, we will be inviting council representatives to support and participate in the community conversation on truth and reconciliation that we are organizing this year. We'll bring together leaders and youth to discuss how we as a community can advance truth and reconciliation in Oak Bay. Now, we know we can't move fully ahead without guidance, direction, and engagement from the nations, but there is much we can do to prepare the ground. So I'd like to close with a quote from the Honorable Jody Wilson-Raybould from her book, True Reconciliation, How to Be a Force for Change. She says, "Too often, we will use Indigenous peoples as an excuse not to act by saying things like, Indigenous peoples need to be in the lead, or Indigenous peoples need to show the way, or Indigenous peoples need more time, or Indigenous peoples want more consultation. And when we use these excuses to justify our own inaction, we are not standing for change." Thank you.
Have you concluded now? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Kilpatrick and Ms. Stairs. It was interesting. I guess I have a couple of comments to make. Somewhat disappointed that we're not hearing more of some of the initiatives that have been undertaken by ReconciliACTION and what their goals are for the future. But just addressing a couple of the issues that you raised, by way of motions that have taken place at the council table. And I know around the council table, I think that everyone certainly shares the knowledge that we want to progress in our relationship with the First Nations of this territory particularly. Some of those issues that you mentioned, though, were actually reported out on, and there was a council priorities report of November 27th, and so that did outline the status or progress on several of the issues. I know it's difficult sometimes for members of the public to be fully aware of everything that goes on, and you don't always read all of the minutes and follow through on it, but we do actually track these things and we do report on them, and yes, I share sometimes frustration, and have over the many decades I've been involved with some of this process, that while it's been slow, it is consistently moving forward. And we do anticipate this year again advancing mutual goals and sharing that information in a way that is respectful of Songhees and Esquimalt nations. And I'm very cognizant of the fact of the confidence and the sharing of communications that we must do in partnership with those nations. And so some things come forward to the public in ways that we can share, and some are still more private until we communicate out with the nations. And so we have not just the time frame of our council that can be somewhat limiting, but we have two other councils, the Songhees Council and the Esquimalt Nation Council, that also have their own time frames. So I while I do understand some of the looking like progress is not really being made. Quite often things are going on behind the scenes that can't be shared out until we can do that respectfully with the nations. And I think there are also members of council. I know myself, because I am liaison to Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee, we are working with all of the nations. Again, those things don't always come into the public system until they can be, until we have ensured that everyone is in agreement that they come forward. So even in that realm, while that doesn't formally go into the Oak Bay reporting, I do report when I come back from meetings, and I can share things with council. I share those things around the council table. And so there is often things going on, and perhaps there is a more meaningful way to share those out with the community, and we will have to work towards this. But by no means is it just at a standstill. Things are progressing. And I don't know if Mayor Murdoch would like to add anything, or our CAO would like to add anything, but I know that we are busy working on the relationships.
Well, first of all, thank you for being here. And I think it's exciting to sort of see some of the updates that you guys are working on. And the community conversation is this spring, is that correct? You're planning on?
That's our intention, yes.
That'd be great. No, I think those are fantastic, initiatives, and if there's ways that we can help, that's fantastic. I think, I think the comments made here about the community and the council working together on these things is bang on. I think there are some things that we have to do separately. Obviously, there's government-to-government rules that we have that. We really do have to honor their protocols of the nations that we're dealing with on those, and sometimes they are not colonial. They are more private than ours, right? We have a real requirement for the public aspects of communication. So as we're working through some of those pieces, they're there. I think it's fair to say that the relationship we have right now with Songhees is extremely strong. We're working on a lot of issues together. Probably the best I've ever seen it between our two communities. Esquimalt Nation with their new council has been a new one for us to, as we're working together, as they're getting themselves up and running as a complete new chief and council. But I think that relationship will only be strengthened as ReconciliACTION and other community groups are doing their work. And I can't speak. We don't have motions coming out of committee of the whole directly. So your asks are things that we will contemplate. But certainly, even without a select committee or any special reporting, I think it's important for us to keep the dialogue going, sharing ideas, keeping things moving forward. And I do recognize that it's been a struggle at times as we're trying to build trust and relationship with First Nations on important issues like Spewhung is a good example of that. We're trying to do that in a way that's respectful. It means that we're not having that same conversation with the community, that we are going to come back to the community shortly. I guess I would just highlight, and I really appreciated members of ReconciliACTION being at we recently had the unveiling or the official blessing of the Shtakaya artwork down at Cattle Point, and the participation of Songhees there with that, and that process that came about to bring that to our community was really powerful. So I think there's a lot of really good steps, but there's a lot more that we have to get doing, and the more that we do it as a community together, the better that is. So we're really excited and really happy that you guys came here today just to share some of what you are up to and what you might be doing. And I guess just really encourage you as you're doing these community events, keep us in the loop as well so that we are able to support the work that's going on, because sometimes we may have some ideas or contacts and vice versa. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I think Councillor Green has a question, and followed by Councillor Appleton.
Yes, and through you, Chair, and thank you so much to Mr. Kilpatrick and Ms. Stairs. We really appreciate it. I think the point here for me is that ReconciliACTION has built bench strength at the community level that we don't have, and that's where that kind of partnership is so strong. You can do a lot of things in the community that we're unable to do. And I agree that it would be wonderful to do some of those activities together. And I'm really thrilled about the conversation you're planning in the spring. And that will be the first conversation, to my knowledge, that has occurred on a broad community level. And those are exactly the kinds of activities and events that can support the work that we also do. So thank you so much for being here. And thanks to all the members of the network. I really appreciate seeing your wonderful faces.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. And thank you to our guests for attending. Really appreciate it. And to the broader community and the other folks who participate in the network for coming down and supporting the organization. I wanted to say, first of all, wanted to take this opportunity in this public format to thank ReconciliACTION, particularly for organizing Oak Bay's event on the National Day of Reconciliation, and the event that centers around the Snow-Wyeth Pole. That's an event that's basically become fundamental to the community. It's a touch point for the community. It's a landmark for that period of time, and it really has become sort of a fundamental component of how we recognize that day in our community. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to all the people who are involved in organizing that. It's a real critical event. I'm similarly very excited about the community conversation that you mentioned you've got organized. Early days, as you say, many moving parts. I don't want to put you on the spot, but what are you contemplating for, what would you like to see for deliverables? What would you like to see come out of those conversations? How would you like to see it be structured? Just, initial thoughts about that.
Felicity, if I may. So we've been fortunate to secure a couple of incredibly experienced facilitators who are going to approach this through a shared leadership model. Those facilitators are Chris Corrigan of Harvest Moon Consultancy, who's got more than 30 years working with Indigenous governments and organizations and individuals, along with Yahweh Lipton, Bradley Dick from the Songhees Nation, who will be our co-facilitators. The idea here is to begin a conversation about how we can do this together, about the need to move forward and how we can take advantage of all of the skills and talents and experience and expertise that we have in the community and on council, and to do things in concert and to figure out who can do what and what additional horsepower council or staff may need. How could that be supplied by the community? To get a sense of what is it that it would be realistic for us to start with and to begin that conversation with, but to focus on actually delivering. So our name is ReconciliACTION. We chose that very deliberately in the beginning because we wanted to focus on making things happen, moving forward. And those relationships, Mayor Murdoch, thank you for mentioning those, are very important to us as well. And we have been fortunate, as Felicity mentioned, that the chiefs of the Songhees and Esquimalt nations have very generously created communications protocols for us in order that we can get direction and guidance from them as we think about the sorts of things that might be valuable in our community that would be of value to the nations. Because, of course, understanding their priorities and supporting them as best we can is really absolutely fundamental to the work that we think we need to do.
Mr. Watson.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, this is a question, a request to our CEO, Ms. Williams, please. One of the things that ReconciliACTION Oak Bay has highlighted, some resolutions and what the follow-up would have been. And I just want to ask at a general level if you could explain to the public, and this would be about these issues or any other resolution, how they know where to find what action has been taken on a resolution. Because I know even for us at the council table, that can be difficult unless we know the roadmap. So if you could just say a few things about that, that would be really helpful. Thank
Ms.
you.
Williams.
Thank you.
No, Ms.
Oh,
Yes.
can I ask that you turn your mic off, just so I don't get any feedback? Thank you so much. Thank you. So thank you, Councillor Watson, for the question, and through you, Chair Patterson, to the group. So Council gives direction in a couple of different formats, and one is through the priority setting process. Everything that's directed through the priority process is reported out on it through a council priority update report. And so we do those twice a year. I believe Councillor Patterson mentioned the most recent one is November the 27th, at the November the 27th council meeting. So you'll find an update on all of the initiatives listed in your package at that meeting. We also store that on the council priority webpage. So if you go to council strategic planning webpage, the other method of giving direction is, of course, through resolutions at a council meeting. And starting this year, we will be reporting out quarterly to council on all outstanding resolutions. So if they haven't met the criteria to be a council priority project, they will be reported out on quarterly through that process. So the district has always taken a very transparent approach to reporting out and updating the community on what's happening here in Oak Bay. And those are a couple of ways that we'll be doing it this year.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Watson? Thank you.
But I just would like to say thank you for coming, and we really appreciate all the initiatives and the development of the group and the huge increase in the numbers of people who are actively engaged in this process in the community. It's really, really heartwarming. So thank you.
Mr. Smart?
Thank you. Through you, Acting Chair, to the presenters, I just wanted to mention how much I appreciate the breadth of some of the work you're undertaking, particularly around things such as the book program and the green map. And I guess what I've heard from community members is that people are at very different places in their own personal journey of reconciliation. And to have different touch points that could invite people in is really important. And as it's been already stated around the table, this is work that is challenging sometimes procedurally for us to take part in. So we're just so appreciative that you're able to provide this for our community. And I have also just heard so much how important it is to have something that is Oak Bay, and to have a feeling that people are not alone in their journey. And so you're addressing both of those things, and so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. Anything else? Mr. Kilpatrick, you finished your presentation, but I'll allow you to come back.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to some of the comments about the reports that come to council. If you would like at some point, tonight is not the night to do it, to have some community feedback on how those resonate with people who are not inside Municipal Hall, I think we'd be delighted to do that, because looking at them from the outside, they are impenetrable, and there isn't enough information to really know what they're saying. For instance, a line that says "conversations in progress" really doesn't mean anything to the community. So we'd be, again, delighted to offer you some feedback. Those of you who know me also know that I have a background in communications and marketing, so that's right in my wheelhouse, and I know colleagues on the steering committee for ReconciliACTION Oak Bay Network also have some useful things to say about how those look from the outside. And I think it's always useful to talk to your audiences about, do they understand what you're saying? And is there a better way to communicate that would be more meaningful to people who aren't living and breathing this inside these four walls every day? Thank you.
Thank you for sharing those insights, Mr. Kilpatrick. And I again, want to echo the comments of everyone at the council table. The work you do is really appreciated. It's important work to the community. It's important work to the nations. And it can be challenging and difficult work, and nothing proceeds quickly in this arena, as I said, I've found out over several decades. But you know, having a membership of 5,000 people connected into ReconciliACTION's missions and goals and what they would like to achieve is really wonderful. And yes, the communications are sometimes difficult, but we have to recognize the autonomy of the nations and try to keep the council business in the council setting and look to voices like all of yours for sharing this out with the community. So thank you so much for what you do, and thank you for attending tonight. I think we're going to be, we're going to have a few people departing, but the next item up on the agenda is the mayor and council verbal reports. And perhaps while the gallery seems to be emptying quite rapidly, perhaps we can go around the council table. Perhaps Councillor Green would like to start. Do you have a councillor verbal report?
A very brief one. I attended the Tourism Committee meeting just before this meeting, and there.
Maybe you should just hold it for a
I'll
few
wait till
seconds
people
until
leave,
they
yeah.
depart. Okay, Councillor Green, I think you're fine to move ahead now.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to let you know that I attended the first Tourism Committee meeting of the year tonight, just before this meeting, along with Councillor Braithwaite. And tourism, I think, is starting off with a bang this year, and they will also be reviewing their membership of the committee. So we've asked them to update and look at the terms and so on. So that's going to be work that they will take on shortly. And prior to Christmas, I don't know if we've met since the BIA mixer. There were a few activities that were attended, and yeah, so that's all of my news for the moment. Tomorrow is Thursday is the Regional Water Supply Committee or Commission meeting, so that should be interesting also. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Watson.
Yes, very briefly. Thank you, Chair. The day after our last Committee of the Whole meeting, when we reported out, we actually had the SIP Local Leadership Day, and there were over 90 people there, including many Oak Bay councillors. It was some really great panels, and now starting the work of reporting out on that and next steps is already underway, and tomorrow I will be meeting again with the Municipal Partners Group to figure out actually how to do that effectively. And otherwise, since my last report, I attended some Christmas festivities in the community and had a lovely long holiday, but there hasn't been much since since early December. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. And yes, a few of us did attend that South Islands Prosperity. It was quite an interesting day. Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I will update Council on, attended the last meeting of the Heritage Foundation as liaison on January the 9th. There's some folks in attendance. Hi. The foundation, as always, has a significant number of initiatives underway, and planning is well underway to finalize this sort of late winter and spring's presentations, community presentations. So there are a couple in the works, but they're not ready for prime time yet, but they will be announced very shortly. I've had a preview of the content and it looks really good. So I will also say that in my capacity as chair of the Greater Victoria Public Library Board, the library board has not met they meet next week to pick activities up for 2024. What I will report, and council may and the community may already be aware of this, is that as of January the 10th, the GVPL is a fine-free library system. The GVPL has discontinued fines in mirroring some of the activities of significant-sized systems across North America. It's been a really exciting initiative for the library that really will break down barriers and increase accessibility to the library. The fines can be a significant barrier to certain folks engaging with the library. And scrapping the fines will help a lot of people re-engage with the library. We've got a real confidence that that's going to happen. So all in all, it's a really great thing that's gotten a lot of really good media coverage and has gotten us a lot of really positive feedback. So we're really excited about that initiative. And I will just mention very quickly to council, just as a early heads up, that I will be bringing forward a resolution for AVIC with reference to libraries, specifically to seek additional funding for libraries as per some of the calls that have gone out in previous years. So please do stay tuned, and that will hopefully be appearing soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. And yes, I also must say that I do very much appreciate all the reminders that come out from the library's automatic system too, reminding me when to get the books back in, because I can tend to forget about them. Over to Councillor Braithwaite.
Thanks very much, Chair. So the Royal McPherson Theatre Society and the Parks, Rec and Culture have had no meeting yet this year. The BIA, as you've probably noticed, they still have some of the lights up on the avenue, which I think looks really pretty. I wish the lights could stay up a lot longer. I think these ones, the ones that are up right now, will stay up until into February, I think. And then we're also working on the public markets and the spring and summer events through the BIA. And the SD61, we're continuing to do the fundraising for the Jack Wallace track. So anybody who wants more information on that, please let me know. And as a reminder, the Oak Bay Volunteer Dinner is coming up in February, and also the Oak Bay Yes Awards, which celebrate youth in our community, is coming up on February 8th. So if you know any great youth that live or go to school in our community, that from grade 6 to grade 12, please go on the Parks and Rec website and you'll find an application to nominate them for an Oak Bay Yes Award. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Braithwaite. Councillor Smart.
Thank you. Yeah, I too have enjoyed this break of meetings to attend many Christmas celebrations, including the BIA Mixer and the Labour Council Christmas Party. I have really enjoyed connecting with residents, also on the New Year's Day walk that we had. So it's been a nice chance to have more conversations. And then I've got an upcoming Arts Commission and Climate Steering Task Force meeting in the next couple of weeks. And that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. Mayor Murdoch.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Of course, I get to give updates every time I chair, so my mayor's remarks, so I don't have too much to go over. I do want to express my appreciation to the library for waiving the fees. That should help my credit score, since I think I have a pretty substantial amount backed up on the... probably shouldn't admit that in public. I was over in Vancouver last week doing some strategic planning for the BC Association of Police Boards. I sit on the executive of that, which looks at the municipal police boards across British Columbia. And just some interesting work to try and, a good example of how, we're stronger when we work together, but how hard it is sometimes within frameworks of getting effective coordination and work done. So, but a lot of real positives there, I think, that'll kind of help make police more effective and more standardized across the province, and more accountable and responsive to change as well. So that's some interesting work going on. I also just wanted to highlight that this week is you probably saw it in the news that Hockey Day in Canada is coming here, so I'll be involved in some of the hosting activities for that. But I do just want to put a little plug in the last Stanley Cup. One in British Columbia was here in Oak Bay on March 30th of 1925. So we're just under 100 years from celebrating the centenary on Epworth Street, right across from the Snow Wyeth Pole. In fact, there's a little plaque right beside the Snow Wyeth Pole that commemorates the event by the high school there. So, yeah, just all moments of celebration and good times happening this week, and lots of amazing how fast work ramps back up again with the start of the new year.
Thank you, Mayor. And it seems like it's been cold enough the last few days, but I really don't know how it can be a hockey city without snow. And for myself, I just would like to mention one event that I attended just at the start of the holiday season that really was the highlight of the holiday season for me, and that was on December 18th. I attended the homecoming event for His Majesty's Canadian ships, Vancouver and Ottawa, as well as the Naval Replenishment Unit, Asterix. They had been deployed for 126 days, so I, as acting mayor, I attended out in Esquimalt. It was a wonderful day. 624 sailors and air crew that came home for the holidays. It was very, very lively. Stephanie Greaves said was singing for the event, and the naval band was playing, and we started the morning off with breakfast tea with the Commodore Mazer. So it was a wonderful day, and although I did not get to attend any of the deck parties that seemed to be going on the ships, they steered us away from those. Those were for naval and families of naval personnel, and they seemed to be having a very good time. So I don't know, it smelled like they were cooking up some pretty good stuff. So there was barbecues going, but it was a wonderful day, and I had a marvelous opportunity to engage with the families and friends and hear stories about who they were there to welcome, and it was just seemed like a very appropriate and fitting way to start off the holiday season. So I was thrilled to do that, and that concludes my council report. We now move on to item 6 on the agenda, public comment and question periods. So this is an opportunity for members that are in the gallery or anybody, I don't see anybody on the screen, but if you could just move forward to the speaker's podium. And I will remind you that if you please keep your remarks to 3 minutes, state your name, municipality of residence, and just a brief introduction of the topic of your remarks.
First, I'd like to say hello, Esther. Esther came to one of my sharings at the university, and I was so touched. Her and Roxanne came, and I really,
It's you. It's Hazel. Hazel. Hazel.
Hazel, sorry. Hazel, I'm quite nervous because I'm not used to a forum with such. Sorry. I'm sorry, Hazel.
That's okay.
That's fine. If you would just like to perhaps take the chair and the microphone.
My people stand in a circle.
Okay.
We all belong on earth.
Thank, yeah, thank you so much. So if you could just perhaps, if we could just move the microphone over a little bit closer, just so it makes sure that all your remarks are heard by everyone in the room. Thank you.
Wait.
Welcome.
I can stand back? Okay. I hope I get to meet you sometime, Esther. And Karine, it was lovely meeting you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Council. And thank you, everyone, for allowing me to share my truth today. And thank you to my friends from ReconciliACTION Oak Bay and my friends from Cadboro Bay. I don't walk with any of the nations here. I'm just an Indigenous woman sharing your story with you today. My elders have taught me that relationships are the most important thing in life. It is not what we accumulate. How we walk in relationship with kindness, thoughtfulness, compassion, care, and understanding. That relationships take time and trust to develop. And you may not be aware, our nations do not trust easily due to historical wrongs. And it is huge for me to stand in front of all of you today in this forum, speaking my truth. My ancestors and elders are with me today as I walk with my grandmother's, great-grandmother's moccasins and the shawl that my mother made me, my powwow shawl. I choose not to wear my medicine shawl because it is not appropriate. So the most important thing are relationships. They are the key to everything. Words have to be chosen carefully. Actions have to be taken carefully. because they can never be taken back. No interaction is too small to be treated this way, from a grocery clerk to you who are in positions of power. Thank you for hearing me. And it is very hard to adhere, when I'm sharing my truth, to the Western times, or the Western concept of time. Will you allow me a little more time?
Thank you, Ms. Carradine. I recognize that you come with good intent. We do have procedures to follow here. To extend the time for a speaker would mean really would really there's just a formality, and that is to set aside our standard procedures and go to council to see. I would entertain a motion from council to extend the speaking time for you.
If you have to
that's
do
wish.
that, so be it. I stand here respectfully, imploring you to take action visibly for reconciliation. If you please take a vote.
Do I have a-
move that we suspend the normal orders of procedure to allow
Thank you.
the speaker to speak longer.
Second? Yes. All those in favor? None opposed? Ms. Carradine, if you would like to continue, please.
Oh, thank you. I'm so forever grateful. I walk with the medicine wheel in the footsteps of my ancestors and elders. It is circular. It is broken into 4 quadrants. To the east is the color red. I walk the red road. At Red Road, every nation has its own colors and its own medicine wheel. To the south is the color yellow. To the west is the color black. To the north is the color white. And in the middle stands the sacred tree with its roots running deep into the ground. What those colors represent is all humanity. That we are all brothers, sisters, they, them, us. That we all have a place upon Mother Earth. That we all belong upon her. That our very survival depends upon each of us taking care of each other and Mother Earth. There is a personal part of the medicine wheel. It is circular, 4 quadrants. To the east is spiritual well-being, whatever that is for somebody. To the south is your emotional well-being. To the west is your physical well-being. To the north is your mental well-being. Our belief is you need all 4 quadrants to live in balance. Historical wrongs have created dysfunctional communities due to imbalance with emotional well-being. And mental well-being is thinking, learning, and knowledge. I myself am reclaiming who I am, and Bruce has my status card, so people can't question who I am with the way things are going. And I share my story with organizations, not for monetary gain, but to be a change maker. And they decide as a community who they're going to donate money to, what Indigenous cause. And it brings me such joy to see the causes they donate to, because I am privileged. I worked hard to earn money, 3 jobs to go to university to become a teacher. So I understand that council has to work in a legal frame context. And the nation's, thankfully, it isn't the 1800s anymore, so we have our legal teams. And I know we had a team of legal experts when our band settled its land claims. However, as an Indigenous person, transparency is so, so important. And it brings me joy, like when I was able to share with Kevin here, or Mary, that I didn't think he was going to be the slimy politician that came on our reservations and gave free booze for votes. So my hope for council is that you walk in community with Oak Bay residents, that you walk in community with the nations, that you walk with understanding, you walk with care, you walk to build trust, you walk in a good way, that each of you individually and as a collective create change. You have the power in the palm of your hands to create change. And I know that my hope is, because there isn't much transparency, that you're going in the direction heeding all the legal causes to action. And I thank you from my heart for hearing me today. It's so much easier in a university setting than it is in a bureaucratic system that destroyed our people. And please, as you make your decisions, think of all the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, all the individuals who came before us and have their footsteps in everybody's backyard here in Oak Bay. We all belong to Mother Earth. All its resources need to be shared. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Woobla. Thank you in a community way. My name is actually Hamidi Koyag Moningwi. I got that name from my elders because I was persistent. It's woman who follows her dreams. And I'm determined. And in my lifetime, I never thought I'd witness standing in a council chamber using my voice, because I come from a time where I had no voice, where my father, who was not Indigenous, would rent places because one look at my mother and one look at me meant we'd be in slum housing. And we would hide in the car. I come from that time. I come from the time where my mother, who became a psychiatric nurse, went to a hotel having organized a conference for psychiatrists. And she had her nurse's outfit on. And they sent her outside because they didn't believe she was who she said she was. And they called the head psychiatrist. And they had security standing with her to confirm she was who she said she was. A woman of color who came from a brutal foster care system. I come from a long line of residential school survivors, as well as segregated Indian hospitals. Thank you. I'm grateful.
Thank you, Ms. Carradine, for attending. I'm sorry, I apologize. I will not try to say your traditional name. I think it's a little beyond me, but thank you so much for coming and sharing with us tonight. And thank you for your work with ReconciliACTION. We'll just let Ms. Carradine see her way to her seat. Is there any other member of the gallery that would like to speak? Kathleen Matthews, come forward. Ms. Matthews, could you maybe just get the microphone a little bit closer.
Thank you. My name's Kathleen Matthews, and I live in Oak Bay, near Windsor Park. There are 3 items that I would just like to comment on. The first item is, I think first, so I want to thank you, Ashley. Thank you very much for your courage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The first thing is, it's hard to actually speak right now, but I think the person from Capital Bikes is maybe not here. But I really appreciate, Councillor Smart, that you mentioned seniors and e-bikes, because I've just acquired one. I'm terrified of it. I've biked up to UVic hundreds of thousands of times, across the country, down to Mexico, but I'm terrified of my bike, especially my battery. So if you could, I was going to encourage them to ask for funding to do an e-bike for seniors in Oak Bay. If you could offer that or communicate that, because I'm not going to bike out to Sydney on my e-bike, because I can't do it, you know. So I was going to ask, but thank you for doing it. That's the first thing. The second thing is that I sat in on one of your meetings where you were talking about relooking at the parks, for the children's playgrounds. Please consider, we need crosswalks into Windsor Park. There are a lot of children going in there. People are not respecting the 30-mile zone signage. It's not positioned well enough, but you need crosswalks at least 4 entrances. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. I know you don't want a speed bike because you want bikes running around. It's the best paved road. I live right on the corner of Currie and St. Louis. But people really are, with all the dogs coming and just the workers coming to do, you know, maintenance work and garden work. They're driving really fast at 8 o'clock in the morning. Zoop, and it's scary. Okay. The other thing is that I really want to, I really appreciate the report that ReconciliACTION prepared. Honestly, it was lovely to see that, and thank you for this presentation. I would like to ask ReconciliACTION to find a way so that individuals that are not affiliated with an association can participate, can be part of the conversation. I am a founding member of Friends of Uplands Park, a founding director of CAOP. I'm not closely associated with any of them, although I still am members. But I don't feel like I have a voice, and I would like to have a way of supporting the ReconciliACTION initiatives. I would like to, and I really appreciate the idea of transparency and how do I find out what's going on? I agree that it's not very transparent. It's not easy for me. And I do understand that there are privacy issues and respect issues with the nations. I would like to ask that Oak Bay could be more proactive in telling us how they're implementing UNDRIP, how they are implementing DRIP. I am on a pathway. I will say just one more thing, please, is that I think you could be much more proactive, and I would like to see, ultimately, we are leading to land back. I would like to encourage Oak Bay to identify parcels of land.
Ms.
that could be
Matthews, if I
considered
can
for land back.
remind you to just wrap it up. You're at
Okay,
the end of
I
your
am
time.
with you.
Thank you so
I would
much.
like to consider that land back, that could be identified for land back, and if not, complete land back, co-stewardship, co-sovereignty, co-management. I think we need to start addressing the reality that reconciliation means Indigenous-led land back so that they can have food security, have economic sustainability, and maintain their culture and language. And I just would like to see that kind of proactivity from you, not dependent on ReconciliACTION, but coming from you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms.
Thank
Matthews.
you, sorry.
Is there anyone else from the gallery that wishes to speak? Not here. I don't see no one else raising their hand, so I will then move on to the next item of business. The next item of business is the Fire Master Plan Staffing Phase-In Report with Fire Chief McDonald.
Good evening, Chair and members of council. I'm here tonight with Deputy Chief Roger Stewart. It was almost exactly a year ago tonight that we were here with Mr. Dave Mitchell from Dave Mitchell and Associates to for him to present the Fire Master Plan. So that was January 16th of 2023, and almost to the day. So over the, at that meeting, council had ultimately requested that staff come back with an impact analysis as well as implementation options for the consultant's recommendation for staffing, which was model option 3. We've just recently provided the report, which is before you tonight, which has several phase-in options. And before we get into some further discussion and questions about that, just thought I'd maybe review some of the things that we've been doing over the last year. Obviously, we are very cognizant of the fact that whenever you're talking staffing, we're talking for the most part tax lifts, and are very sensitive to the costs associated with that. And I think that's why we've come back with several options that have a longer phase-in opportunity. And we have really looked quite deeply over the last year on what we can do operationally to make sure that we've exhausted all efficiencies in-house before we're looking at asking for any further staffing increases. That has transpired, which ultimately has led to the implementation report that's before you tonight. It's also important to maybe have a quick review of some of the provincial hiring trends that are occurring across the province, which are not detailed in the report. We are not alone as far as some of the significant hiring requests, as well as approved staffing that's occurred around the province. So there's currently 14 departments that we're aware of province-wide that have approved staffing requests that are in play or are in the process of requesting. So Oak Bay is in the process of receiving approval, we hope, as is Prince George. Apart from that, there's 12 other municipalities that have actually received approval and funding and are in the process of phasing that in. Between 2022 and 2026, there's 12 municipalities that have received approval for 230 new firefighter positions across the province. So that's a significant increase. And then when we're looking at the other 2 municipalities, there's another 45 new positions that are in play. So the driver for that really is increasing call volumes, that is occurring province-wide in our industry, as well as increasing PTSD, mental health, and WorkSafe claims. The impacts of changes to the Employment Standards Act, and in particular, changes to maternity and paternity leave, and the impact that it has on organizations that have minimum staffing requirements, changes to statutory holiday requirements as well. And then, depending on the size of the organization, compliance with WorkSafe Rapid Intervention Team compliance, as well as for several organizations, luckily not us, but the challenge that they're having with regards to trying to rely on volunteers. So there's a large segment of that group of 12 that are reducing the reliance on volunteers, especially given factors related to the minimum training requirements that the provincial government has brought into play. So those are, we're not alone with regards to many of those municipalities. And, some of the increases that some of the other municipalities have received are up as high as 44 members over a 4-year period, down to as low as 4. We're on the lower part of the middle part of that sort of spectrum, but like I said, it is an interesting trend. Within the industry, we haven't seen changes like that since the late 60s and early 1970s when the Fire Department Act in its current language came into play. That brought in significant changes in the hours of work and the platoon configuration that is outlined by the provincial government for the fire service within the province. So, like I said, significant changes that have occurred, and it's been a long time in between that. So with that being said, we're happy to entertain any questions that council may have with regards to anything that's outlined in the report through the chair.
Thank you, Chief. And go questions, I think Councillor Appleton had, and Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the Chief. Chief, thank you for attending and appreciate this follow-up. Just a couple of questions. So what I'm seeing, if I get this right, and I'm sort of asking questions just so, members of the public and folks can, so we can have this public discussion just to understand the nature of the issue a little bit better. But essentially, right at the moment, one of the main drivers here is to increase from a 5-person crew to a 6-person crew, and I think the report mentions that 5.25 to 6-person crews are typically the standard. So I just wanted to confirm whether that's the correct number and sort of that's the standard. And I guess further to that question, based on what you've just said, as far as that there's additional departments that are looking at staffing increases, as you just referenced, are there additional departments that you're aware of that are seeking to move away from a suboptimal number of staff? Right now we've got less members per crew than what would be typically standard. Are there other departments that are seeking to staff up in order to fill that gap? As you say, there may be some historical practices that are still to be addressed. So I'm just kind of curious about that.
Chief McDonald?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. And so just to clarify, when we're talking about the 5.25 to 6, that's actually the staffing factor. That's not the number of staff that we require. So when we have one position, the recommendation is you have anywhere from 5.25 to 6 people to fill the one position. We have 4 platoons, 1 on each platoon, and then with the demands for vacation, maternity, parental, WorkSafe, all that stuff, you need more people in order to appropriately staff. The department's historical staffing factor was 4 to 1, so significantly below where we're asking. In regards to the additional, I think questions you were asking about, are there other factors that departments are looking at increasing? So again, it's more about trying to get into the right staffing factor. And, around the province, there's different departments that are at different levels. Some of the reasons that they are trying to change the staffing factor or increase the number of staff that they've got for the department, it might not be to deal with the staffing factor. It might be due to population growth and having to open new fire stations. There's that side a factor as well. Obviously, that's not a factor for Oak Bay, but that is another consideration.
Councillor Appleton?
Well, thank you, Chair, and I appreciate that answer. So just with respect, and that's interesting, and I appreciate that clarification. So the situation is that we're seeking a 6-person crew, which allows us to sort of deploy 2 people in sort of 2 members into a specialized capacity, leaving 4, which is sort of the appropriate capacity to service the existing call, or potentially does that also extend to situations where, and of course we do get so many medical calls that are not related to, firefighting, obviously traditional firefighting. Do I understand this correctly, that it would allow us the ability to dispatch a 2-person medical crew with an appropriate vehicle and still allow for the right staffing to be present at the hall to respond otherwise? Is that how I understand that?
Chief?
Through the chair, you're absolutely correct. The 6 is the sweet spot for the department to be able to deal with the 803 medical calls that we experienced this year, as well as maintaining fire protection for the district through a 4-person engine company.
Thank you. Councillor Appleton?
Yep, thank you for the opportunity to continue. I guess I'm just kind of wondering about the aspect of it. I think it's well addressed in the report, the aspect of overtime, and I think that it's fairly clear from the numbers that the service has presented to council that the lessened capacity or the smaller crew leads to fairly significant amounts of overtime being incurred, and I think that there's an intentionality here to decrease the amount of overtime. If I'm seeing it right, just sort of in terms of overtime estimates that were in the report, it's that we're seeing probably nearly a 50% reduction in overtime with this 20% increase in staffing, that we've done a little bit of increase in staffing. I know this is impossible to predict. These things are highly flexible from year to year, so I understand those 2 things don't connect directly to each other in that way. But I guess the fundamental of my question is, are we seeking to, every fire department will always incur some degree of overtime depending on the nature of the work during the course of the year, but is the intentionality here with the larger crews to, I guess, reduce overtime to the greatest extent possible? Is that the target and the intention here?
Chief?
Through the chair, another great question. So I think it is important to say that whenever you have a department that has minimum staffing in our industry, you'll never be in a situation where you can run with 0 overtime. Definitely the intent is to reduce the overtime to a level that will support department operations, as well as where we can minimize the amount, especially minimize the amount of 24-hour shifts that staff are working. And keep the distribution of overtime spread across our personnel down to a manageable burden that prevents or minimizes burnout. It's important to note that what we've detailed in the report is to support the minimum staffing requirements within overtime. But our global overtime budget also does support backfilling and training needs. So it's a pool that we use. We're hopeful that we can get it down to around the neighborhood of $225,000 to be our approved operating budget in today's dollars, and then not ask for any increases in additional overtime outside of matching any contractual increases. So we're keeping that on par or status quo, and then ensuring that we are trying to operate within the budget, not going above budget. So the intent is to work within the operating budget that we've got for overtime moving forward, and we think we can do that with the changes we're proposing.
Thank you, Chair. My question was around the overtime as well, because I was looking at the figures and I thought, does the figures, the increase that you're looking at over the next 5 or 8 years. Does that take into account the lowering of the overtime? But you've kind of answered that question in saying you're going to keep the overtime, that line item in the budget at the same, at around 200 and whatever you said, 275 or whatever it is that you said.
Through the chair. Yeah, so currently the approved 2023 overtime budget was 249,000 and change. What we are proposing for 2024 is actually reducing it down to 225 based on our existing experience, and hopeful that council will make some accommodations for a staffing increase, which will further allow some flexibility to be a bit more nimble with regards to how we're addressing our staffing needs.
Thank you. Councillor Braithwaite?
Thank you so much. And then as far as the, around another question that Councillor Appleton asked around the 6-person crew, is that standard like in Esquimalt and Saanich and Victoria? Is it a standard across all fire stations, or is it more of the busier ones or the larger areas?
Chief?
Through the chair. So again, on there's the crew size and then there's the staffing factor. So the industry standard for staffing on an engine is typically 4 people on an engine. And so if you look at some of our neighboring departments, whether it's Victoria or whether it's Saanich, they're satellite stations, so stations 2 and stations 3 at each department. They're typically running a 4-person engine company. Saanich has recently moved to a 6-person crew out at their University Hall, which is a 4-person engine plus a 2-person medic. So they are, obviously they butt up against the northern part of Oak Bay. They've got a very similar clientele and demographic model, to us, and they are running an extremely high number of medical calls there, which again is why they are moving to a medic response as well to maintain their fire protection coverage for their district. So that it's not uncommon. We are seeing more and more communities that are running it. City of Vancouver is running numerous medic trucks, and I believe at the UBCM, Coquitlam did make a motion for the provincial government to support funding to purchase capital equipment for municipalities to offset fire responses or fire costs associated with medical responses. So they were proposing that the province actually fit the bill for medic units or squad type trucks. Medic squad's an interchangeable thing in our industry, which are really allow you to run with a smaller crew and a smaller vehicle to medical calls rather than a 40,000-pound fire truck with 4 people on it. Because once you leave the station with your fire truck, you better have all 4 people on it, because there's no going back for them if you need to go to a fire call.
Thank you, Chief. Councillor Braithwaite?
Thanks. I have 2 more questions, if I may. My next question was in regards to the response to request for assistance under the medical incidents. In your report, I noticed from 2022 to 2023, it went from 544 to 803, and I thought, wow, that's a big increase. And do we know why that would be? It was about a 200, almost 200 increase between 2021 and 2022, but this is even like another 50 on top of that between 2022 and 2023.
McDonald?
Through the chair. Again, very observant question. We are seeing this trend across the province. It is an increase that is going on all over the place. I think the City of Victoria, they ended up increasing their call volume by several thousand calls, the majority of it being medical aid. The other significant factor, so some of the challenges is the provincial government, I think, is trying to increase their staffing within the ambulance service. They're having challenges maybe with the growth model, as well as they're receiving increased call volumes, which is then resulting in increased calls for us. And then the other piece that I didn't really touch on the report is the increase on scene wait times for us. So from a liability and risk piece, we have a contract with BC Ambulance where if we are responding as BC Ambulance until they relieve us. So when we take care and control of a patient. We are ambulance, we are the provincial government until relieved. We cannot abandon that duty of care if another call comes in. So the challenge that we've got is we can't really leave one person behind if we get another call. It's an unsafe work practice. So then we're left in a situation where we're either going to leave two or we're going to keep all four on scene. Either way is extremely suboptimal. And we are averaging about 60 overlapping or simultaneous calls a year now. So when I say overlapping or simultaneous, we are at a call and another call comes in. About 35% of those are public assistance, non-emergency. We've got lots of flexibility there, no problem. But the other 65% are emergency related. And there are times when we are not able to respond. It's just, if we can call on a mutual aid partner to do it, they might be able to take the call in, but we do not cross borders for medical aid calls. And so there's lots of occasions where, there are first responder calls that are going unattended by fire. It is more of an issue when you look at the wait times and the standard of care we would like to provide to our residents. The longest on-scene wait time that Oak Bay Fire experienced in 2023 was 1 hour and 45 minutes. So that is a significant operational impact and service impact. There was numerous other times when we were in the neighborhood of an hour. When you look at the averages, are from dispatch to when we're released from a scene, we're averaging about 21 minutes or so for medical aid. It's not extremely onerous. And then for a non-medical call, our average is around 27 minutes. But when you're looking at the severity of calls or the acuity of calls, things like cardiac calls, we are averaging about 45 minutes on scene. And so that creates a big operational gap for us with our one and only fire protection unit for the district. And then it ties into our mutual aid partners. And if we're not able to respond, we're having to rely on mutual aid. And, I think you've seen the data that's in the report as far as relying on our mutual aid partners, just from a RIT perspective. But if we're having to rely on our mutual aid agencies to actually provide the first-in fire protection, some of the response times are very long. When you're looking at an average of basically dispatch to on scene of 8 minutes, and then more than 9 minutes, that's a little, that's a lengthy window. It's more than double what the NFPA standard is for a first required fire response unit. So. Long-winded question, but it answers hopefully a few others as well.
Any other questions,
Just,
Councillor
yeah, my
Creighton?
last question. In regards to some information in your report that talked about how since 1965 to 2024, the number of residents in Oak Bay has only increased by 1,000, but UVic has gone from 3,500 to 27,000. And I guess this is more of a, so we end up having to, the cost for our response to UVic, because it's obviously the calls from UVic are on the increase hugely, and as we all know, one of the banes of my existence is that we only get $56,000 from the provincial government for tax in lieu at the university, and I'm wondering as a council if we should be not lobbying specifically around this, where we know that we need more firefighters to help with responding to calls around UVic, and more police as well. And I think it would behoove us as a council to approach the government. I mean, if we're having to increase the number of employees that we have in the fire department and in the police department, that's probably going to be the next ask, then I think that we should actually be reaching out to the government. So is there a process that we can go through for that, or I'm not sure if there's something we can do as far as that goes.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's for the chief or for our CAO. Ms. Williams?
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you, and our Chief Financial Officer is not at the meeting tonight. Certainly, if it's something that's common throughout municipalities in the province, a resolution to UBCM may be helpful. But my understanding is that the PILT is based on our assessments, and I'm not positive where the agreement to using that methodology came from.
Thank you. Anything?
Thank you, through you, Chair, and I'll be brief because this is just building upon, I think, what's been said so far. I just wanted, and thank you for the clear report, Chief McDonald. Just wanted a little bit of clarification on the actual numbers provided in the charts when it says cumulative dollar value tax lift for both the 5-year chart and the 8-year chart. I'm wondering, is that purely salaries that have been untouched by reductions such as the $25,000 savings in overtime? Or does it account for some of those less tangible savings? Thank you.
Steve?
Through the chair. Great question. And so the cumulative dollar value is really, it's the hard numbers, or the gross numbers, not including any of the other decreases like the 225. That really, that does come, I'd have to ask Mr. Payne to comment on that probably during the budget process. But no, that's not included. This is straight salaries as well as the cost of equipment and training requirements for the staff.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Smart?
Thank you. Just one more follow-up question through you, Chair, to Mr. McDonald. I just wondered, I wanted to give you the opportunity, perhaps, if you wanted to say anything more about some of those less tangible savings that I realize might be hard to bring out in an official report. So in case there were any additional comments as to savings that we might optimistically, but couldn't guarantee to be realized. Thank you.
I guess just before the chief answers, and I will go to him, I think that some of this information really would have to come from the chief financial officer, because there could be savings in some areas, as the chief has pointed out. However, you'd have to factor out some of the other things that might go into, say, workers' compensation charges and whatnot. So you would have to, I think, do a bit more analysis. But Chief, if you have any comments, that would be great.
Thanks, Chair, and through the Chair to Councillor Smart. So WorkSafe is definitely one of them. As I think we outlined the dollar figures that are associated with both the claim history as well as the experience rating. So given our experience rating, there is the potential where the premiums that the district is paying could ultimately be reduced relative to our peer group. It's not a guarantee, and some of it is relative to our peer group. How are we doing? We know we believe we're high, but until we actually see a reduction in the experience rating, and then ultimately how that compares to our peer group, it's going to be hard to say. There are some other increases we're experiencing as well, decreases to budget. You can remember the dispatch contract. There is about a $20,000 savings in that for 2024. There's some other things that we're seeing as well. Some of that can be rolled into just helping reducing additional operating requests for the department.
Thank you, Chief. Any further questions, Councillor Smart? No? Then I will go to Councillor Green.
Thank you. And through you to the Chief and Deputy Chief, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for the report. Also the refresher as I was going through the master plan from 2022. I just have one question and then a comment. I just wondered if, that was 2 years ago, as you pointed out, on the last page of the executive summary, under Fire Hall 13.0, 14.0 response analysis, 15.0 benchmark survey, there were no recommendations in that original report from Mr. Mitchell. But I just wondered, since 2022, are there anything, is there anything you would like to add to those sections? And it doesn't have to be detailed, but I just wondered if you had had a chance to reassess over the last 2 years. That's the question. Thank you.
Chief?
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Green. So just a reminder, I believe that Mr. Graham, I believe, will be coming forward with a feasibility study here for the public safety building, I believe, next month. Is that correct? So that's long awaited and very on point for the topic. It is also important to note that fire has made several requests, either directly or through facilities, through several capital improvements to the fire hall. The existing fire hall, which will, the majority are already funded and approved and in the pipeline to help support any increase in staffing, as well as improve the living conditions and the basically the business workspace within the fire station for the duration of the occupation that we are there, or to support any future tenants within the building. Those include changes to the, or improvements to the washroom facilities, going from basically a single access to 3 gender neutral shower, washroom, toilet facilities, which are great. It, yeah, anyways, I think you guys get that piece. We're also adding some additional office space upstairs in our training room. And we have there will be a small request for 2025 in the capital plan coming up for some, a minor kitchen improvement, as well as there's some, we already have approved funding as well for improvements to the training area as far as technology, which is already approved and will be incorporated once we do the office improvements, which will be done at the same time we do the washroom. So lots of things that are in place for the current space. And then probably the next piece is the critical training needs we have for the department. In 2023, we were able to use existing dollars to build a secure training, or a secure storage area in the back of the fire station, where we now have locking gated access that we share with police, where we can actually put our auto extrication vehicles and prevents general public access, as well as when we get the new temporary storage structure for the ladder building, we will be able to use that as a multi-purpose facility. We do have a smoke machine, and we can put an as-needed sort of modular walls in there so we can do our provincial minimum training standards for interior operations, where we can do interior attack in a smoke environment. So significant sort of stopgap measures that will be, hopefully before the end of the year, put us light years where we were 2 years ago.
Thank you. And just one further question. This is a living document, the master plan, I'm assuming, so you can make those amendments year over year if you need to reflect changes and improvements or not. We want improvements, but if there are issues and challenges, you can use this document as your guideline then. So it can be amended over time.
Chief?
Through the chair, so the 47 odd recommendations are fairly, fixed as far as the actual recommendations, but there are so many changes on related, regulations and pieces of legislation that are occurring that are complementary to the recommendations, that yes, there is flexibility, and typically that would come through any sort of budget, annual budget process if there was a monetary value. And other than that, it's really operational flexibility for how we manage the department.
Thank you very much. And just one last comment. I'm wondering, it would be interesting to know, and I don't think anyone can answer it here tonight, but what the healthcare crisis and the shortage of family physicians, what kind of impact that's having on the call-out rate for first responders. Whether or not it's a factor, that it would be interesting to know. But that's a huge increase over a fairly short period of time. So something's certainly going on. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green, and I now have Councillor Watson, followed by Mayor Murdoch.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, please, to Chief McDonald. Thank you for the report, and thank you for referring us back to the Fire Master Plan, which just to help for tonight, I took a look at again before I came to the meeting. So my question is about clearly, we've endorsed the staffing model that you've brought back the implementation plans for, and it's expensive, and that's just the reality, that these things are driven much by statutory requirements and changes that are beyond our control and are part of new standards, and also by the shift to this new model, which is going to have some real advantages for us. So my issue is not at all with the cost, which is large, but what outside of the budget things we were talking about earlier, whether this investment will further improve our fire underwriters rating, and how soon we would know that. And I guess following off from that, how soon we might then be able to at least say with some assurance that our homeowners in the community are actually experiencing lower, maybe not lower insurance premiums, but no further increases, or there's some offset for that. Because I was struck by that in the Fire Master Plan, that if we didn't do this, homeowners would be paying more for their home insurance. So I'm just trying to get a sense of if we could ever calculate with any kind of accuracy or even ballpark the extent to which these investments will result in money in the pockets of homeowners, even if they don't come into the municipal budget revenue.
Chief?
Through the chair, thank you for raising it. I was hoping that someone would bring up fuss tonight. So for just as a refresh for everyone, the Fire Underwriter Survey ultimately it's an independent organization that goes around and does surveys of communities to basically rate the fire protection capabilities of a district. It's broken into numerous different categories. A lot of it is, or a large percentage of it is underground infrastructure, the fire protection training, the equipment, staffing. There's a variety of different factors. And then there's the residential component, which is called the dwelling protection grade. And then there's the commercial side, which is the public fire protection classification system. So they're two sort of independent things, and they have different gradings for them. So the dwelling protection grade is graded between a 1 and a 5, with 1 being the best. The District of Oak Bay rates as a number 1, so we are maximized as far as the residential fire insurance. That being said, Fire Underwriters is always reviewing its baseline criteria, and they are evolving it as things change. So when you're looking at things like population densification, changes to street design, traffic calming, we don't know how that's going to impact ratings compared to now in the future. So as Mr. Mitchell outlines in his report, we can't forget that any investment we make in the department and the fire protection, whether it's equipment, personnel, or the underground infrastructure, should be viewed as an investment to ensure that we're not going backwards. So that is one piece. And then the next piece on the public fire protection classification is really what ends up leading to the commercial insurance ratings. So we are currently at a rating of a 3. Within that rating, I think our range is somewhere between, and this is, please don't quote me on this, it's a highly technical formula that Fire Underwriters uses to determine, but within the commercial rating, we are around a 73 is my recollection, and we have reviewed with Fire Underwriters if we were able to fully implement model number 3 or the 10 additional staff, as well as get our 2 new fire trucks, which are coming. We believe we will land at about close to a 78. The range to move to the next step, we believe, which is taking you to a level 2. We fall a little bit short but we're getting close. And we don't know with regards to additional changes that will be occurring in the underground infrastructure, where if we can continue to make progress on renewing and refreshing the underground infrastructure, especially as it relates to water supply, then I would hope that in a few years we can go for another fire underwriters and really push on the commercial side. And there's potentially at the very least in the neighborhood of a 5% reduction on fire insurance premiums on the commercial side of insurance premiums, which is not an insignificant number when you look at from a commercial perspective.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions, Councillor Watson? No. Mayor Murdoch?
Thank you, and I really appreciate all the questions that preceded me. My only question here is really just for my clarification on, through you, Chair, there's two options here. One is more obviously a 5-year time frame versus an 8-year time frame. And my guess is that the front loading is the highest value in the sense that the first couple of years of adding people, or the first few people being added, or have the maximal impact, i.e. they reduce the overtime and so forth the most, and then each additional person coming on probably has less per person impact in terms of some of those direct costs and operational pieces. I'm just curious if that interpretation is correct.
Through the chair to the mayor, you are exactly correct. And as we outlined in the report, we will, if we get approval, we will leave the minimum staffing at 5 until we have fully implemented and ultimately received all of the firefighters, which ultimately would be at the end of year 5 or at the end of year 8, depending on the option that council is willing to support. The reason to do that is, like you say, you get a maximum front end reduction, and then ensuring that you're not committing to a 6-person minimum staffing model too early. Because if you do, we're right back into having a substandard staffing factor. And so if we hire an additional 7 firefighters and then the additional assistant chief, we will be at a 5.25 staffing factor to support 6 people on duty. We'll be well above a 5.25 staffing factor if we still are maintaining a 5-person minimum, but that won't probably happen until the last year of the implementation, if you're understanding what I'm saying.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor?
No, I appreciate that that comment. I'm happy to see that. That's my question, but I'm also happy just to make a motion to receive so we can get to comments as well at this point, if that's acceptable. I'll move receipt of the report.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? That passes. I think Councillor Appleton had one more question to ask.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. Go ahead, Councillor Appleton. I was going to move one of the options, but go ahead if you have more questions.
Well, I appreciate thank you, Chair, and I appreciate the move to more commentary style, because I don't want to rehash, and I also don't want to ask the chief to editorialize here, but there seems to be a direct connection. I was just listening to a series of articles, actually a number that came in one right after another, basically talking about sort of the critical nature of ambulance coverage in a lot of parts of the province and just how significant that is. And it seems to be that there's a direct connection here between, as you described, Chief, wait times to be relieved at scenes. Like we are seeing this. There is in part the need for this medical crew, and what's driving some of these needs is because there is and again, I don't want you to comment on another service, but it just seems that it seems becoming clear to residents of Oak Bay that there is a gap in coverage on the ambulance side of things, and this is a very practical manifestation of it, quite honestly, on their tax bill. So, I mean, like I say, I won't ask you to editorialize, but I see an operational connection there between capacity to deliver on behalf of the ambulance service and what we're required to do.
Yeah, thanks. that's really commentary, but I'll let
Through the
Chief
chair,
respond.
I guess the one other commentary piece back would be, it is interesting when you, aside from the medical aid side, when we are responding to structure fires and we are requiring mutual aid to help establish rapid intervention team requirements for us. You know, out of the 40 responses that are outlined it's important to note that the average in there is the dispatch to on scene for our mutual aid partners. It does not, so that's dispatch to on scene. It takes a further 3 minutes and 30 seconds for those departments to properly establish a rapid intervention team. So they have to actually get all their equipment off the truck, they have to set up their tarps, they have to establish a second means of egress, and they have to do a 360 of the structure for a standard residential occupancy. So that's 3 minutes and 30 seconds added on top of the dispatch to on scene time. So we are, by virtue there, on average, we're greater than the 10-minute window. And then on top of that, we have at least 4 of those responses where we had confirmed working fires, where dispatch to on scene was in excess of 15 minutes. So for one department, it was, I think, 15 minutes and 30 seconds, and another that was 17 minutes and 30 seconds, and then the other department was 2 in excess of 18 minutes. So regardless of the challenges that we're having on another pre-hospital care provider provincially, there are real work-safe requirements that we've got for our staff to provide full service firefighting capabilities to our public. And I think we can all appreciate that you know, our staff are well trained. You know, they have a desire to do the best they can for the community. And if they are going interior in either a rescue or a fire attack capacity, it is, you know, a bit of a very challenging environment to be in if an incident commander is asking them to pull out because, you know, they might not have a mutual aid partner there for their writ requirements. But that's the commentary piece back.
I have one question myself, if we could. I think the mayor is hoping to, sitting in that seat now, he can make other recommendations. So, however, I do have one question, and I guess generally I am supportive of the staff recommendation, because when I look at the percentage, what is being proposed and as a percentage of total general operating expenses, it is still in line with or slightly below that of many other districts. So although keeping in mind everything you've said, and that the other districts are also in the same predicament with some of this medical response as we are, I think everybody is moving up in line, but at least there's a rationalization to this. I'm just wondering from the mechanics of how it works, though, for fire services to be providing this medical service in emergencies as compared to an ambulance service providing it, what are the limitations? Is there, you know, is there a variety of training? Is it the equipment that's in the vehicle? So really, are we transferring the burden to our fire departments, but not getting quite the same services we would get if it was an ambulance service providing it?
Thanks for the question, Chair. So under our agreement with the province, we are first medical responders. So we form part of the pre-hospital care system, but we do not do patient transport. We have limitations on the degree of training and licensing that we can get within the province. There are some communities in the province that are certified to what's called EMR, or Emergency Medical Responder license. So that is the same level of training that the basic ambulance attendants have on their vehicles, but they are not advanced life support, you know, paramedics. So there's There's a few different factors there, right? But, you know, we are trained with regards to having defibrillators. We've got Narcan, as well as a variety of other things. But, you know, we cannot administer drugs of any sort. So there's a few different, you know, changes there, right? But there are times when we are on scene significantly faster and can have really substantial changes. But at the same time, you know, it really can put our crews through a significant roller coaster. And, you know, for some of those departments that are hiring people, it's because they're going through a very similar overtime, as well as staff burnout crunch that we are. And whether that's coming directly as a result of some of the call volumes that we've got, or different types of call types, because some of the communities have extremely high opioid responses relative to us. You know, our opioid responses have significantly increased within Oak Bay. We've, and when I ran the data as of September, our call volume had more than doubled in that period from the previous year. And, you know, we were in the early part of the year when you look at the decriminalization of hard drugs. There was a significant sort of uptake relative, you know, for our Oak Bay's typical responses for opioid calls. But so it's almost a 200 to 300% increase over, you know, previous years. So that's just, you know, another example of things that are changing, but, you know, services that we do provide.
Thank you for those remarks, and I really appreciate all the commentary that came out at the council table. There was lots of questions. I believe now I will go back to the mayor, who was wishing to move the recommendation forward to council.
I do just want to move things along. I'll move option 1, which is the 5-year phase-in plan. And I'm procedurally, I think it's always good to put forward the recommendation. I'm going to put forward an amendment as well, which I think just to test the waters a little bit, because I think it's important for us to have the first 2 years of this to be accelerated. But I'm but I'm a little concerned about committing to the 0.75% baseline tax increase for the following 3 years every year. It's just getting into a little period of time. It's hard to foresee that much. So I'm going to make an amendment that just moves the increases under option 1, the 5-year phase-in plan. So move that those the increases from 2026 to 2028 be implemented in the years 2026 to 2029, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it moves those years into about a point closer to that 0.47 in the other years. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't motivate until I. So my motion is to just within the 5. So we have a motion on the floor for the 5-year plan. So my motion is to amend that the 2026 to 2028 years be spread over the years 2026 to 2029.
Second, and any
So
further
all I would
comments?
say is that, and I think this is just very simple, and I'll trust the wisdom of the body here if it makes sense or not, but I just see that there's some value in us accelerating the implementation of this in the first 2 years. We have control within this council term. We have those, we can consider it within all the other priorities that we have and the pressures. We have a good sense of that. But looking in the following 3 years currently, but I would suggest 4 years with the amendment, that reduces that quarter or 0.75% increase to closer to 0.5% increase in those following years, just in a sort of, we don't know what's coming mindset, that might make a little bit more sense. Thank you.
So, on the amendment, any comments?
Just a question, please, back to Mayor Murdoch. Just so that I understand this, so what you're suggesting really is a motion that would actually have a 6-year implementation, and in the first 2 years, in order to, well, you're going to motivate in a second, but to support hiring, you would the expenditure amounts would be greater, or the lifts would be greater in the first 2 years, and that would be based on a percentage to tax increase right? And so that would determine what those numbers are. We don't know what those numbers would be, like, it's not this chart anymore, but it would be based on a percentage to get that number. Is that what, in effect, what's on the floor?
Yeah, to answer the question, correct. The 2024, 2025 of that chart stay the same, 0.75, and the balance, which is 2.25%, gets spread over 4 years instead of over 3.
Councillor Smart?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I appreciate the reasoning behind the motion. I won't, up for the amendment. I won't be supporting the amendment because what I just heard from Chief McDonald was they're not actually going to switch to that 6-to-1 ratio model until that 5th year, and I don't want to delay that any further, so I won't be supporting the amendment.
If there's no further questions or comments on the amendment, I'll call a question on the amendment. Favor? Okay, and opposed? We have Councillor Green, Councillor Smart opposed. The amendment carries, so then I'll call the question on the main recommendation as presented, as amended, sorry. The main motion was made and seconded, and so I'll call a question then on the amended recommendation. All in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Smart and Councillor Green opposed. That motion carries. And that then
Move adjournment.
moves, I wondered if Hazel, she was already packing up, so I thought, Chief McDonald.
If you could just indulge me on a point of personal privilege. So let's like to address council and say, thank you very much. You know, this has been 50 years or so in the making, and as far as the, so choking up a bit. As far as the health and wellness of our members go, thank you. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Chief, and I really, our fire department in Oak Bay is really appreciated by all the community. I hear that on a regular basis, and I know you've certainly been busy the last little while because I keep hearing the fire trucks going out. So thank you so much. Thanks for the report, and we have a motion for adjournment.
Actually, I'll just say one thing. I know that Councillor Green and I were at the Oak Bay Tourism meeting, and they, Oak Bay Beach Hotel was so thankful for all of the work that you guys did to help them with the fire at the Oak Bay Beach Hotel. So thank you.
If I can just add, they said you were amazing, and the support they got after, you know, the emergency was over was astounding from all of you. Thank you.
I'll move a motion to adjourn.
So thank you. If the Mutual Admiration Society is adjourned, perhaps I can call for adjournment of the meeting. All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you.